This video is sponsored by Gear. This is Zhiyun Smooth Q2. This is the latest smartphone gimbal from Zhiyun, and I have it in my hands right here. And I got to test a few different gimbals in the past few months, and if I'm honest, there are so many different options for gimbals nowadays, but if I'm honest, most of them will perform pretty well. When it comes to stabilization, most gimbals will perform pretty well, so the bigger difference that you might feel as a consumer will come from things like the design and usability. So you're going to be wasting a lot of time if you're just looking for smartphone gimbal reviews of people just running around back and forth. So I thought I'll focus a little more on those things that actually mattered and those things that actually made this gimbal more unique and special. And when it comes to design and usability, this gimbal does have some interesting features. The first thing that you might have noticed is that it's really small. This is so far the smallest smartphone gimbal that I've ever seen. But for such a small gimbal, everything feels really nice. The build quality is definitely there, and the silicone on the grip is really nice, and everything is made of metal. As some of you may know, the biggest issue that I have with most gimbals is that they're so awkwardly shaped and they're difficult to carry. But this thing being so small, I had no problem fitting this in my bag and carrying it around everywhere I went. Let me just take the phone off of here just to show you how small this is. It's not a foldable design, which would have been nicer, but it's really not much bigger than my phone actually. I really like how simple this looks, and it actually has a flat bottom, so you can set it on a flat surface like this, and you don't really need a tripod. But if you do need to put it on a tripod or a selfie stick, you can mount that at the bottom as well. To mount your phone on the gimbal, all you really need to do is just push it into the slot like so, and then you don't really need to calibrate it or anything. You just have to hold down the power button for a few seconds, and then it comes to life. And as usual, like most other gimbals, there is the joystick that controls the camera manually, and there are different modes that you can use to control the camera in different ways. To toggle between different modes, you click on the joystick once to move forward and click on it twice to move back. There are just two other buttons on the gimbal, and that is the record button and the power button. And another cool thing about this gimbal is that you can easily switch between landscape and portrait mode. So let's say you're streaming live on Instagram or something and you want to go to the vertical mode, and all you have to do is just tilt your hand sideways and the phone will go to portrait mode. And to go back to the landscape mode, all you have to do is just tilt your hand the other way and the phone will go back to the landscape mode. So although this is a pretty small gimbal and it doesn't have a lot of buttons and indicators, you can control this very intuitively and everything works as you would expect it to. The gimbal is charged by USB 3 and it actually has a very impressive 17-hour battery life. And the battery is actually interchangeable, and all you have to do is just unscrew the bottom and the battery will come out like that. So you could get more of these if you wanted to, but when the battery life is already so good, I don't think it would be necessary. Oh, and one thing probably worth mentioning is that I have my iPhone 11 Pro on here, and I have the option to shoot with the ultra wide angle lens, which is very fun with this gimbal. But about the only problem is that the angle of view is so wide now, you can actually see parts of the gimbal on the corner of the frame. So when you're using the ultra wide angle lens, this does get in the way time to time, but if you hold the gimbal like this, it's actually not an issue at all. And there's been a recent firmware update actually, and the way they fixed this was if you triple tap on the record button on the gimbal, it actually tilts the camera upwards slightly so that the gimbal doesn't get into shot. So that was a pretty simple and effective solution, and if you move quickly, it still does get into shot time to time, but it's really not a big deal at all. So is there anything that I don't like about this gimbal? I'm really nitpicking here, and especially for the price and the design, I really like this gimbal a lot. But because of the small design, maybe it's probably not the most ergonomic design, and especially this cylinder shaped handle here, it's probably not as comfortable as some of the other gimbals that I've used before, but unless you're going to be using it for a long periods of time, I think it'll be okay. And also probably because it's a smaller gimbal, it doesn't seem to handle quick and abrupt movements as well. So, and also because it goes to portrait mode very easily when you tilt the gimbal too much. This gimbal is probably not the best if you're gonna be using this while playing sports or riding a bike or something. But for everyday general vlogging purposes, I think it'll be just fine. The Zhiyun Play app is pretty simple and easy to use, and it's pretty well designed, but it doesn't seem to offer a whole lot of benefits over using the default camera app on your phone. There's some different filters you can use, and there's the motion time-lapse, which obviously you can only do in the Gimbal app, but when I'm not using those things, I think I'll be just using the default camera app. Oh, and one last thing, when I unscrew the tripod from the bottom of the handle, I have accidentally unscrewed the top of the battery compartment a few times and turned off the gimbal by accident. So if you're doing that while you're filming something, just be careful. So yeah, I think that was pretty much it. The Zhiyun Smooth Q2, I think it's a pretty cool gimbal. It's a very nice design, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.